Happy New Year's drivers! To start 2021 in the best mood we can, let's cover each alpha and beta version of the driver games we all love and that leaked at different times throughout 2020. We asked you what was your favorite leak in the YouTube polls and the results show a big victory for the pre-release version of Driver 2. I preferred the Driver 3 press demo, but don't worry, we are going to cover all of them with help for some great driver content creators. So there is no time to waste, we have a lot going on and we are starting chronologically with Driver 1.
This build's existence was known for quite a long time, but 2020 finally marked its public release and the first driver build to be released this year. MadJ155 received a copy of the disc a few years ago, and you might have already seen a complete walkthrough of this version on his channel. However, earlier this year it was made publicly available with some edits by Racing Freak and yours truly to get the best experience out of it thanks to some small fixes and improvements here and there. The number in the name's version refers to the date of the build, 11 April of 99, so 2 months before release and compiled 1 month before final version. Nevertheless, the game's almost complete as it features most of the missions from the Undercover Story mode that we all know, with the exception of LA missions originally, as the game would softlock after reaching a car selection scene before one of the missions, meaning you won't be able to progress any further. This was eventually fixed after Racing Freak realized that the mission ladder file from the final game can be used to continue the missions as order, skipping the car selection feature completely, but in the end, only the first mission in New York can be played properly as the city is very unfinished, so no beta presidents run to torment you.
Nice driving, son, and don't forget, subscribe to Vortex.
Additionally, I managed to make a functional map toggle in the pause menu, as the function for it was already in the executable, but it was not shown in the menu. I also made the car park turning playable without crashing the game. Racing Freak managed to relocate the spawn point in New York Take a Ride to a different location, as the original one would otherwise crash the game once you try to drive a little. The differences in this build are noticeable in several areas. In the main menu screen, you will not hear the main menu theme you are used to, but instead Punch Bowl by Alan Parker. This track will be used again, but only in a PC version of Driver, in the famous tutorial car park mission. And that makes sense, since the PC version, which was released a few months later in September, is in many ways an older version of the game, including its choice of the library of music. After all, Driver originally started development as a PC game in early 1997. The loading screen still refers to a well-needed optimization in loading times, and it doesn't feature the GT Interactive logo when you're loading missions. The same loading screens can be found in the March demo. When you play and take a ride, you will instantly notice that every city is unlocked from the beginning of the game and the different spawn points in each city. In the heads-up display, damage and felony are written in lowercase instead of capital letters, and in New York you'll notice that the timer font is still the same as the earliest demo versions, which is a leftover from the Destruction Derby games Reflections developed before Driver. What's more interesting is the aforementioned car selection cut feature. Before a few missions, especially in LA, you were given the ability to choose which car you would start the mission with. Since you cannot change cars in-game in Driver 1, that could have been a very important choice gameplay-wise. However, it did make the cut for the PS1, certainly because of optimization issues. It is a very glitchy in April build, as you can see on Racing Freaks' video of this cut feature. In the end, Reflections decided to keep it in the PC version for 3 undercover missions. Finally, the game has active debug options directly in the pause menu, which is always a good thing to play around with. Invincibility and immunity will take the place of damage and felony on the heads-up display, removing their bars and appearing in white instead of yellow, just like in the demo version. You can also fix your car and reset its position if you happen to not be on your 4 wheels anymore at some point, and by selecting cheat, you will skip the current mission or exit back to the menu if you're playing in Take a Ride. Basic McNally, if you love Driver 1 and you want to replay it with a slightly different version of the missions and graphics, then I highly recommend you to try it. But be aware that this version could be unstable at some point.
Hi guys, I'm Viper. I'm a driver speedrunner through and through. I've done from the first Driver all the way up to San Francisco, and yeah, here's some information about the Driver 2 pre-release. So how did it appear? Well, this one has the most unusual story. It was not buried in a forgotten dev kit hidden in the developer closet, but indeed it was actually right in front of our eyes the whole time. One day, a member of the Driver Discord, named Doc Khalud, talked about his memories of Driver 2, which didn't match exactly the version remembered by most of the members. It then appeared that some part of the world got a different version of Driver 2 than the official final version. So, what does it contain? Well, first of all, it's dated October 1st, so this actually came out a month before the final version. It's the oldest fully playable version currently available, but it offers more than meets the eye. For example, it offers 3 cut missions, 1 cut car, a felony system that's less forgiving on foot, and changes to the cities. First of all, you can play each mission of the story mode with small changes here and there, but more importantly, the game features 3 cut missions as well, which are only accessible by use of level cheats in Chicago, Havana, and Rio. During your playthrough, you will also notice that the on foot introduced has not the same impact on the felony system, which is less forgiving overall. Unlike the final version, you can't change cars after a cop chase ended to remove your felony, as you will gain some automatically by stealing a car. It makes missions a bit harder if you're used to switching a lot to avoid as much police heat as possible, and a lot of cop chases, and it offsets too much the addition of on foot as a way to remove your felony during gameplay, which was not possible at all in the final game. Thankfully, it was tweaked in the final version. There is also a cut car to be found in the pre-release version, well, at least part of it, as only the textures remained but not the model, which can still be seen on screenshots from paper magazines of that time. It was then remade in Driver 1 by Racing Freak, and now that Redriver 2 is modding friendly, it should also appear in the city it was actually meant for. Speaking of cities, they're also quite different for a month away build as well, especially Vegas, which have more details and areas located elsewhere. Knowing the performances were even worse on the pre-release version, it's understandable they tweak down the cities to gain the most frame rate they can, although they also restricted the drawing distance in that process as well. The spawning location was also different if you choose night as the time of day and take a ride. With the release of Redriver 2, the pre-release version lost a bit of its greatness, but it's still a Miami edition to the discoveries of this year and the celebration of the 20th anniversary of the release of Driver 2 that we all love, as the results of the YouTube poll showed.
Happy holidays and New Year to all of you watching. I'm Milenov and I'm here to talk about the Driver 3 press release demo. Let's get to it. This is the first build discovered in 2020, thanks to the help of the obscure gamers community. They regularly find and gather old developer kits, and this press demo happened to be on an original Xbox HDD. Although the press demo is from February 2004, only 3 months before release, the game is looking drastically different, and it shows the tremendous amount of work Reflections put in to get the game as playable as possible for the June 2004 launch. Thanks to Pavomba, a member of the obscure gamers community, we have footage of this build, which still requires to be played on a dev kit or a modded Xbox, with 128 megabytes of RAM, compared to the retail Xbox consoles, which have only 64 megabytes of RAM. In this version, used at several press events, we're able to play 4 missions set across 3 cities of Driver 3. The very first one, Police HQ, immediately shows the forced use of first-person view inside interiors, which was later cut by letting the player choose which camera to use instead. Tanner's on foot animations were even more unfinished and clunky, looking pretty awkward moving around. The pedestrians are barely reacting to Tanner and still behave like a mix of Driver 2 and Stuntman, by consistently avoiding cars. There's even less traffic on screen in this version, and the performance is really bad. Other than that, Police HQ remains mostly unchanged, with small differences in the shooting range. The next available mission is The Siege, which also showcases how unfinished everything was, from the walking animation to the gunfights, including the dull sound effects and background. Gameplay-wise, this mission has surprisingly more path variations when it comes to the driving section, with Bacchus going to the highway and featuring roadblocks completely missing from the final version. The only mission in this build taking place in Nice is Rescue Dubois, which starts right in front of the target restaurant. But before that, we can watch the cutscene occurring during night, unlike in the final version where it's dusk. The second part of Rescue Dubois isn't featuring the ability to drive by for your partner, as it must have been a late addition. As such, the chase sequence is playing more like a traditional driver mission, with Tanner having to ram the evader off the road. The last mission of the build is Bomb the Truck, taking place in Istanbul. It opens with a different in-game cutscene and starting on foot. Again, no drive-bying, and the mission is made virtually unbeatable due to the fast speed of the truck. In accordance with earlier missions, Quick Chase driving game doesn't feature your partner shooting out of the car either, forcing you to ram them until they damage out. Generally speaking, the cutscenes available in the press demo have sometimes different sound effects, visual filters, and more shots, but also missing stuff in comparison. Unfortunately, other missions cannot be played at this time, as they are locked out, but we are confident this restriction can be removed in the future, making other beta missions available. Even so, we can already see differences when it comes to mission names. Bacchus was called Little Havana, Welcome to Nice used to be Kalida's Tale, 18-Wheeler was Arctic Wagon, Hijack was Mountain Chase, Booby Trap was called Speed. Names aside, we hope the missions might hold more differences. Although the cities are mostly complete and done, unlike the missions, they still hold changes, especially when it comes to their interiors. The Red River Bar has a different entrance and more props inside. Toilets are also properly labeled as being out of service by the sign. Sometimes, interiors are even completely missing. But the most notably changed interior has to be the Morton Mall in Miami. You can find a complete comparison video in the description, but in short, it had more shops, props like shopping carts, and even entire levels compared to the final version. Nice and Istanbul also have various differences, and those will be compared in the months to come. If you're still thirsty for more Driver 3 press demo stuff, you can follow the links in the description to watch more unused content, such as vehicle textures, road builder showcasing, unused vehicle selection screen videos, and beta soundtracks. And that's all from me. Thanks for having me, Vortex, and I'm handing this off to whoever's taken. Bye.
Hi guys, Martin here from Wheelsping Gaming. I've been a fan of the Driver series since the first game released on the original PlayStation in 1999, but I'm here to talk about some discoveries from the pre-release version of Driver Parallel Lines. The last leak of 2020 was discovered during Christmas, thanks to a joint effort between Racing Freak and Obscure Gamers. This time, the challenge was to overcome the dongle protection to play the game. Out of all these leaks, the PS2 review code is the closest to the final game, as it is dated only 3 days before the final version. With the exception of a few additional files needed for the development menu, it contains the same game data. Thankfully, however, this doesn't mean there aren't new things to discover in the files. Most of our analysis is based on Racing Freak's discoveries and videos, which you can also find in the description. In addition to full debugging symbols, one of the most interesting discoveries here is the working debug options in this build. Previously, we were only able to access its text content and a non-functional version of the development menu in the PC version. But in this build, it's fully working, with the exception of renderer options. 3 camera options are included in this build, which can act like a tripod camera or even the wheel camera from Driver 3's film director. Driver Parallel Lines didn't have a proper film director, but using this camera and disabling the HUD makes it possible to film machinima movies or cool action videos like those in the trailer or crash and chase montages featured in the game. There is also a mission selection option, allowing you to play any mission script in the game, including unique gameplay settings such as no missions with and without cops if you want the take-a-ride experience of the previous Driver games. There's also a location selection option, allowing you to spawn at several preset locations around the city, and a few special ones such as Riker's Prison or the Cop HQ. You can also select vehicles of your choice. It's worth noting though that the location and vehicle selections will only work outside mission scripts. In addition to this review code build, some of the vehicle and character model designs have changed in the final game. While we've already seen these early vehicles, they inspired Racing Freak to dig deeper in the files and discover even more previously undocumented differences and early character models. For a complete overview, you can follow the link in the description to Racing Freak's channel. The vehicle changes can be as subtle as different paint jobs on the bodywork, or as obvious as missing bodywork parts and hardtop versions of the Rosalita and Grand Valley, which were only seen in the demo. As for the early character models, changes for the beta version of the Kid are subtle. An early version of Slink also has his coat on, which I prefer to the final version without a coat. The funniest ones, however, are the placeholder models. You can't mistake them for anything other than early placeholders thanks to the prominent placeholder text written on them. But that's not all. Racing Freak also finally proved that the unused Glock can be used in-game. For now, it can only be used in the Hidden Games Then mission script that was restored by him. He also made a version of this script that can be used on the PC version. The files are still being checked out as it was only released recently, and further work can be done to use the developer options or possibly improve parts of the code, or make the game easier to mod by understanding the code better. I hope you enjoyed this look at the pre-release version of Driver Parallel Lines. Have a happy new year everyone, and let's hope for a Driver San Francisco remaster in 2021 to celebrate the game's 10th anniversary.
Once more, we can thank Obscure Gamers community for retrieving a lot of Driver San Francisco builds found on Ubisoft Massive Xbox 360 dev kits during the summer of 2020, and posting video footage until they shared the builds on their forums as well. We were focused on the earliest of the builds, meaning the one dated from February 2011, 6 months before release. If we can affirm that the final version is very stable, running smoothly at 60 frames per second, that's clearly not the case for the alpha version, and we can once again imagine the optimization work that was needed in order to achieve such quality in the final game. However, the field of view is a bit larger, and some models are missing in the final version, certainly for performance optimizations. But before going in-game, we can notice the menu is Dratis McNally different, as I've already told you this summer in another collab video. As a matter of fact, the car crash accident was more deeply connected to the presentation of the game, with not only shattered glass spreading on the main menu screen, but also with a shattered windshield when entering and exiting the pause menu in-game. Also, a submenu allowed you to replay every mission in the game chapter by chapter, like the previous Driver games, and another one acted like the classic Take a Ride, allowing you to choose your starting point, the mood, and the car based on the ones you collected before by shifting into them in-game. This was certainly replaced as soon as the garages were introduced, even though in that version they are there, and at the same time they aren't. As you can see, this garage location looks very unfinished. In the same way, you might have already spotted all the different icon colours on the minimap, shining like Christmas tree lights, and they were standardised by only yellow and blue colours in the final version, while the willpower did the opposite and went from yellow to blue. At this point, doing a complete walkthrough of the story mode also shows a lot of subtle changes in almost every mission and user experience. Overall, they worked a lot to smoothen out the transitions between gameplay and in-game cutscenes, and made the narrative way better in the process, with a better integration of Tanner's abilities and side activities. We can even enjoy early cutscenes that are still featuring animated artworks instead of CGI. CUVs, or City Unlock videos, were also different. Needless to say, looks very rough. As well as some of the pips picture-in-picture, showing early rendering of Tanner and other characters' faces. It's obviously not possible to try the online multiplayer on this version, but thanks to the menu tutorials, we know that there was a cut shift weapon, called Take. That had to be charged before usage, and allows you to steal a car controlled by another player. The weapon Impulse was instantaneous at that point, but the charging time from the Take weapon was put on it instead after it was cut. Your online level was indicated in the HUD in-game all the time, and you could use RAM online, which could have made the takedown game mode even more intense than it already is. Finally, we found that there was a scrapped online co-op with 6 missions to play online, with the ability to win medals and score in leaderboards. You can still win medals in the split screen game mode in the final build on the console versions, but you can't play these missions. So that's all for today, and I wish you all a Happy New Year.
Thanks for watching, drivers. I would also like to thank the people who helped me in the making of this video, so Snoopy, Viper Racing, Olenov, Wheelsping Gaming, Man and Drive for their voiceover, but also Racing Freak, which shared to me a lot of footage used in this video, as well as the beautiful YouTube thumbnail and background image. Also thanks to Pavomba, JustAnyone, Mr. Pinball and the Obscure Gamer community for sharing some of these builds, which interest a lot the driver community. Check the description as it contains a lot of links to the resource used, as well as information if you are still looking for more. And also big thanks to my current reviewers which are supporting financially the channel. So DriverDimension.com, French Contact, Nouveau Scenes, Tenko9 YouTube, Emmett McLaughlin and Paul Lanois. You can click on the join button below the video if you want to become a Red River today. Until the next time, see you soon, drivers.